I also want to acknowledge that we've come together today on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I want to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and future. And I also want to acknowledge them as the custodians of a rich and evolving culture and stories that have shaped generations. As it says here, my name is Beth Wilkinson. I run a magazine called Lindsay. I started it, we launched online originally about 18 months ago, and then our first issue, they're on there, and I just brought a couple of copies in here as well. Our first issue on the left there launched in March, and then our second one just came out a couple of weeks ago, which you can see there on the right. So I'm obviously here to talk about honesty, and as Jeremy said, I've been to dozens of these creative morning talks since I've been making Lindsay. I live just up the road in Collingwood and I work from home, so it felt like a really good opportunity to always pop down here and hear what people had to say. And it's amazing because it didn't really matter who I ever heard speaking, I always found that I would walk away learning something. So yeah, it's really nice to be here. It's an honour to be here and to, I guess, now have my opportunity to share a few things that I've learned over the last couple of years. And it was funny because when they contacted me and they said that the theme would be honesty, originally I was really excited. I was like, oh, this is so perfect for me. I'm so honest. And if anyone here knows me, they'll know how I just like kind of, openly just like come out and like say everything and just, I don't really think before I speak and just kind of everything comes out. But then in the weeks that followed, I started to think about that and it all got a little bit philosophical and I started to think, what does honesty really mean? And am I as honest as what I think I am? And the thing is that I think what I realized is that the concept of honesty has become misconstrued in a way. Our perceptions of it have kind of been warped because for me, I was thinking that I was honest. And this is me, for example, in my sort of default mode of thinking that I'm honest. So I'd be catching up with a friend or I would be meeting someone for the first time who perhaps is working in the industry. And because I guess the work that I do is so public, a lot of people know what I'm up to. And quite often people would be like, oh, so you run Lindsay magazine. Oh, it looks like it's doing so amazing. You must be so excited. How's it going? And I'd be like, oh, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good, but it's hard. It's a lot of work. And I mean, you know what it's like, right? It's like, there are good days, but there are bad days. And, it's a really challenging industry. And, but, I guess it's good. And then I guess it started making me think, is that honest? It's awkward, definitely. Really uncomfortable, pretty deflective. But I don't know that it was necessarily honest. And so, I think this, a lot of people say this is a very Australian thing. And a lot of people also say that it's a very female thing. In Margie Worrell's piece that she wrote for Forbes on why women need to stop talking themselves down, she speaks a lot about this, and she speaks about how we use what's called out of power language. And she's not the only one that's speaking about it. It's literally flooded all over the internet. And there's a lot of research that's gone into it, how I guess naturally women have this tendency to use this language that, diffuses our opinions. It kind of dilutes our opinions and also puts down our successes. And it made me realize just how uncomfortable I was talking about things that I had done well with Lindsay, and even more so, things that I had done well myself. And so, and while I think, humility is a quality I really admire in people, it made me start to question, do we always have to pair can you pair honesty with success? I think we sort of deem honesty to be this thing when people are happy to talk about things that aren't going well. That's a really honest person if I tell you all the things that aren't going well with Lindsay. But what about if I tell you the things that are going well? All of a sudden people think that I'm floating my own boat, or that I'm gloating, or that maybe I'm not telling you how it really is. But I wonder, can we rewrite that narrative so that it shares both sides of the story? Does it only have to be negative? So what I've decided to do here today, which feels weird for me, is to share all sides of the story of what it's been like for me to make Lindsay. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the other day I caught up with an old lecturer of mine, and we were just chatting, and he sort of bluntly just came out and asked me, what made you think you could do this? And the truth is that I didn't think I could do it, and that's why I was really close to not doing it. And I was lucky enough to have a few things that went my way, and I thought they were really important to share, because I think for a lot of us, the hardest thing about starting something like Lindsay is literally just starting it. Like, how do you find the courage? How do you make that step forward? So for me, it started with, it started with this. So a few years ago, I was working full-time, and I decided to publish a family cookbook. My nana is one of 14, and there are all these amazing country bakers, and it felt like a really great opportunity to preserve all these recipes that had been handed down through my family. And then by the time we had made it, and I spent all this time designing it and photographing it, and then I went to get costs for printing, and it actually was this like exorbitant amount to get just like a very small print run. And I was like, oh, I can't exactly, charge my relatives in the country $70 or something crazy for a cookbook. So I ended up taking a punt, and I got the cookbook printed offshore. I got 1,000 copies, and while I was working full-time, I spent my evenings and my weekends marketing and selling the cookbook. And by the end of that year, I had sold all 1,000 copies, and the project had profited. And I guess for me, that was my first taste of actually maybe this is possible. But even then, I didn't go and just start my magazine. I had the skills to do it, and I had the confidence from this, but it's like crazy, right? Like, it's a crazy idea to just like leave. I was working in a job that I loved, to leave that and to leave my secure paycheck and, the fact that I had this good job for the unknown and for something that like could totally not work out. And so I then had, and I guess also the other thing I was thinking about is, we always have this idea that we just need one more job. I just kind of, in my head, I was thinking I need one more job before I'm ready to go and start my own thing. And I always, in the back of my head, I always thought that I would. But then I got that one more job. I'd been in my previous job for 4 years, and I was ready for something new, and I wanted something with new opportunities, and I was really, really excited about the job that I had gotten. And then the job was totally not what I expected, and I'm sure there's many people who've had perhaps a similar experience, and that was really a devastating process for me, because I guess you have these expectations, and then all of a sudden they're not met, and then you feel trapped and you don't know what to do. And so the only thing I felt like I could do was to leave. And so I left after 2 months in that new job. And it's weird because I still remember so vividly the night that I walked home from that job, and I thought I would feel really, really terrible. I thought, because we're told like you're not meant to walk away from things like that, like you're meant to stick them out at least until you find another job or something. But I didn't. I felt really good. Like, I felt all of a sudden like light and liberated and inspired, and I literally came home that night and I was like, I'm gonna go and make my magazine. And I think what happened is that all of a sudden I had permission. It was like no longer did I have to go and leave my really, safe and secure job to go and like take this leap of faith. It was like I felt like I didn't have any option but to leave that job, and I didn't feel like I had it in me emotionally to go through that again and to go through that job application process and find another job that wasn't really right for me. And so I was like, and even then I was like, I'm just gonna give it 3 months. I'm not gonna like go and do something crazy and start a print magazine that then I have to bring out a new issue every 6 months. I'll do this for 3 months, I won't apply for new jobs, and I'll just like see what happens. So that's my first little, it's kind of still the same, it's just a bit bigger desk now, I have a bit more stuff. But that was my first post, and even that post is actually 2 months after I started working on Lindsay. I literally started working on Lindsay the Monday after I left my job, and I've worked on it every day since. And I guess I still didn't feel like I had the confidence to post about it and to tell the world that I was doing this, crazy new thing that I didn't know how it was going to end up until a couple of months later. So this is another really common question that I get asked, is people actually ask, like, so I had an idea and I decided I was going to go and start my magazine, but how have you done this? Like, how have you gone from literally, like, I had very few industry connections, especially in international publishing anyway, and, you know, I was working on my own here, and now I have 2 issues out, and we're stocked, as Jeremy said, we're stocked in over 100 stores in 20 different countries. And I can put it down to 2 words: heart and hustle. So for years I've always gone to these talks, and like I said, I've always wanted to make my magazine. So I've always gone to these sort of talks, not actually Creative Mornings talks, but like, you know, everywhere, all the different sorts of things where people are talking about how they've done something. And I'd always go and I'd always be like there with my pen and paper and be ready to like take down some secret formula of how I could go and start my own venture. But then I just kept hearing the same sort of narrative of like, oh, it just kind of all happened organically, you know, just like one thing led to another, and it was all pretty organic. And I think what's happened is that's become this very like cool narrative, because it's like this very, you know, we like to think of us like being this very fluid, creative process, and nothing's strategic or planned. In fact, the word like strategy is even very uncool in the creative industry. It's like, it's meant to all happen organically. But I was really frustrated with this, because I'd go and I'd be like, well, what can I do about your organic success? Like, how do I get that? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I make that happen? So the good news is that Lindsay hasn't happened organically. It's happened because I love what I do. I pour everything I have into it, and I've worked bloody hard to get it where it is today. You know, those boxes on the left are in my mum's garage, and there's another stack of those, the same amount, in a warehouse in Berlin. And that's me on the right, literally self-distributing all of our first issue copies around Melbourne. So I want to tell you a few things that for me, I feel like have helped us get to where we are now. So the first thing is to make something with love. You know, Lindsay, I didn't go and start a magazine because I wanted to make, you know, an exorbitant amount of money or anything. It's not really the best business plan, independent publishing. I did it because I love making magazines. And so what happens when you love making something is that comes through. You know, like your decisions are no longer led by what is the best business decision. It's a labor of love. And then what happens is all of a sudden you start making these decisions like, oh, I will do this like Dutch otter bind because it will mean that the magazine can open flat, it will be really easy to read, even though it costs a bit more money. It means that I'll print it on this beautiful European paper because it's the perfect shade of white and it feels beautiful to hold and it's environmentally friendly, even though it costs twice the amount of the paper that I could have accessed somewhere else. And you start doing these things like these small detailed footnotes that can give people better insight into things that they perhaps might know. And I'll even handwrite postcards. So literally, to the 200 people who supported our Possible campaign, I handwrote a thank you letter to each and every one. And I think these things come through in the product. So while if I was working for a big publisher, they may think that my decisions are ridiculously, terribly bad business decisions. It comes through in another way, and it connects with readers, and it connects with people who want to partner with you because they can see what you've made, that you've made it with love. The next thing is, once you have something, how do you get it out into the world? And the truth is, there's nothing more tragic than having this beautiful thing and then no one knows about it. And I think, you know, it's very foreign territory for a lot of creative people to be able to like market what they do. It's like, we feel really comfortable in the making zone that's kind of private and we can just do our thing, but then all of a sudden to have to go and like tell people about it and to pitch it is really difficult. And pitching is a huge part of my job. I have to do it all the time. But when it got to like complete next level was when I had to self-distribute it. And if anyone knows much about independent publishing, the thing is it's notoriously difficult to get a distributor for your first issue because you don't have anything to show them, to pitch to them. And so I wanted Lindsay to be international from the first issue, so I self-distributed it. And I made this crazy spreadsheet and I found all the shops around the world that I wanted to be in, and I found their contacts, and then I made this very elaborate PDF with quotes from readers and quotes from media and all of our data, and then I started sending them to all of those people. And I heard back from some, and then some I didn't hear back from, which is when I learned to never ever take silence as a no. And if I had taken silence as a no, there are so many things that just would never have happened with Lindsay. So this is an example of, this is one spreadsheet, it's not three, it literally keeps going, and I couldn't even fit them all in the one thing because they got too small. And this is one of many other spreadsheets. This is my retail wish list, where I literally put all of the websites, put the emails, and I would track every single email. So if I wrote to someone and I said, hey, I want to stock my magazine, here's my PDF kit, I would date it, and then if I didn't hear back from them, I would follow up, and then I would date that follow-up. And what this means is that, when I'm emailing, like I said, like my pitching process, it's such a big part of what I do, and still is today. Like, I'm emailing not just retailers, but I'm emailing people that I want to interview. I'm emailing contributors. I'm emailing advertisers. And I can't just remember if someone hasn't gotten back to me. So I need to write all of those things down. So I just want to share like one example of, there's this shop in, and this is like one of literally so many examples, but there's a shop in London, they're the best magazine store in London, Mag Culture. And I wrote to them because I wanted to be in there, obviously. And I didn't hear anything back. So I got my silence. And then I sent a follow-up email and he said, can you send me a sample copy? So I sent a sample copy and I didn't hear anything back. And so I just sent an email going, did you get my sample copy? What do you think? Oh yeah, we'll order 10 copies. So it's like one of many examples where the silence was not a no. Another example was OFR in Paris, who are like, you can't get in touch with them. There is no email address. They don't have a website. I sent an Instagram message and I couldn't get a reply. So literally when I was in Paris, I had a suitcase of magazines and I went down to their store and I said, I really want to be in your store. And he was like, great, I'll take 20. So it's just like, literally, these are just like so many examples of when you just cannot take silence as a no. But then the question is, what do you take the no's as? And what I feel is that you have to take them anywhere, but just not to heart. Because as hard and awful as it is, no's are part of the game. Like, no one is free of them. Like, literally, you think of the best film in the world. Like, there are people that don't like it, You think about, is there anyone who everyone else likes? People are different. People have different opinions. Sometimes the timing isn't right. Sometimes something may get lost with the wrong person. You just never know what's happening. And the point is, it doesn't even matter. You will always receive no's. And it is really hard to pour your heart into something and then to have someone tell you they don't want it. And then to go out there and do that again. And then maybe someone else says they don't want it. And how do you keep doing that? Do you know what I mean? And I've had to learn to become resilient because I have to keep doing that even when I get no's, because there will be people that will say yes. And you can't think that that's, an indication of your product, because it's not. It's actually not indicative at all of your product. It's just life, And we just can't hear this enough. So I've just put together a dozen examples here. This aerospace engineer was rejected by NASA 15 times before finally going into space. 15 times. After finally getting signed, Lady Gaga got dropped by her record label in just 3 months. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers. And just this week, I saw on Oslo Davis, who some of you may know, the Melbourne cartoonist, on his Instagram, after 4 previous attempts, my swimming through traffic illustration this year was selected to be part of Melbourne Festival's Melbourne Art Tram project, Fuel. Now, how do you do that? How do you get rejected 4 times for your application and you go for the 5th? And this is what happens because it's not indicative of his work. He is a fantastic illustrator. And he just knows that that's part of the game. There are other great illustrators too, There are other great illustrators in Melbourne, and it just might not be the right time. So the next thing is to not set your own limitations. This is really important, and I guess this is part of also it relates to, people to being able to deal with the no's, because essentially, if you're never getting no's, then you're probably not aiming high enough, because you're really just like setting the own bar of how far you can go. And if you want to push that, you will get the no's, but it also means that you have the opportunity for people to say yes. A lot of people ask me, how did you get an Oscar-winning composer on your cover? Because we asked. How did you get Aesop to support your event? How did you meet with Penny Martin, who's the editor of The Gentleman? I can't expect that Penny's just going to know I'm in London and find out that I'm this girl from Melbourne with this new magazine and she'll catch up with me. I have to go and do that. And yes, the harder you go, the more no's you'll get, which is hard, but it also means that these great opportunities could be there and could be waiting for you. And then my last thing is it's not meant to be easy. I think, we think it's going to be amazing when we go and follow some creative project dream or whatever, that it's all going to be photo shoots in London or whatever, but it's not. It's actually really, really hard work. And I've calculated that I've worked probably over 6,000 hours on Lindsay. I have gone periods where I've worked 14-hour days for weeks, and I've rarely taken a weekend or even a day off since I started this. I have so many open tabs that sometimes I feel very overwhelmed, and I have to-do lists that literally never get done because the job is never ending. There is always more I can do. And the truth is, if it was easy, so many more people would be going and making their own magazines. But you have to learn to, be comfortable with the chaos, be comfortable that, there will be compromises, there will be sacrifices, it will be unpredictable, and it will be scary. For the first, even now, sometimes I feel scared, but especially for the first year, I felt so scared. I felt so scared that, what I was going to do wasn't going to work out, or, so many different things. But to deal with all those things, I guess it has its payoff. And the truth is that I wouldn't trade any of it in. I wouldn't trade any of that in because I genuinely love what I do, and I've never been happier, and I've met so many amazing people through what I've done and had so many amazing experiences, so I wouldn't trade any of that in. So on my very last point, which is something that is just as much a lesson still that I'm learning, is to learn to be proud of your successes. Like I said, it's, sometimes it can feel awkward and embarrassing, but I think it's really important that, if you feel like you are doing things well, that you can say that, because if you can't say that, then no one's going to understand what you're doing. If you can't talk about your successes, who will? So I'm going to do something really weird and embarrassing, but I'm going to try my normally awkward question answer scenario again, and I haven't even prepared what I'm going to answer, but I'm going to try really, I'm going to try to just answer it honestly. So I just ask someone to ask me how Lindsay's going.
How's Lindsay going?
I already feel really weird. I've really got to get better at this. Well, it's going, it's just so hard. It's going really well. It's actually amazing. And it's been so much work, but it's been one of the biggest adventures of my life. I'm still really bad at this, aren't I? Listen to all my out of power language, all my justs. But yeah, I am. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm proud of what I made, and it's going really well. So thank you.